with my guy Jerry, James, and Nick of LH Cigars. What's going on, gentlemen?
Welcome.
What up, Israel?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm well, just here. Wanted to get another improv situation. We're sitting there having some great conversation, so I don't want it to be in vain or go void. So I'd rather us talk on here. I guess we could start with what's everybody smoking?
I'm going to start because I did not know that Nick was coming into our shop, and one of my own customers, bought two LH cigars and gave me one as a gift. And I tried to explain to him that I get a better price than he does, but he insisted on it. And I'm smoking one of Nick's LHs. Actually, it's
Which one, Jerry?
Guess what, Nick? It's the black label, my friend.
Oh, the limited edition.
The limited edition, the secret.
Nick, you care to share what's in that cigar? You can't tell. Proprietary blend?
Undisclosed fillers. The wrapper is the same wrapper I use in the Nick line. It comes from a certain seed out of the Vuelta Bajo region of Cuba, planted in the farm that we leased in Ecuador. And I love this wrapper, and that's all I can tell you about that cigar.
I got you. What about you, James?
So I've been up since about 4 or 5 in the morning. And this is and I too didn't know Nick was coming into the shop. But I know Connecticut, as far as Connecticut's go, they're among the best. You know, you could put Comandas, you could put a couple others in that category.
Which
as far
one?
as Connecticut. Oliva.
Okay.
James, I need you to take the octave of your voice and just come down about 5 octaves.
Okay, I'll make this.
Yeah, there you go.
In cigar lounges,
Yeah.
inside voice.
Well,
Yeah, and that's it. And but nevertheless, I'm glad Nick is. We get on with this podcast and see what happens.
well, I'm the oddball out tonight. I am smoking a Tatuaje Bone Crusher. Sorry, Nick. But
All right.
but it's really good. It's really, really good.
You don't want to smoke the same thing every time. You want to have a diversity in our portfolio that does include the LH Nick line. And I don't think Nick is sponsoring this either. And he's a guest.
Hey, listen,
Yeah.
smoke, you know what I say? The best cigar is to smoke the one you have in your mouth.
That is true.
Amen.
That is true.
Well said.
So Jerry and I were talking the other day, well, actually today, about these cigar cliques. People that move in certain circles, very difficult to get into. If you choose to get into it, they only smoke certain type of things, and they move in their own little way. And one thing that I like, I spoke about this before with Nick, and Jerry and I have spoken about it as well, is being like the anti-cigar clique. Just enjoy what the hell you want to enjoy, smoke what you want to enjoy, and just let that be that. I'm not here to judge what anyone puts in their mouth in any form of capacity. So
I go ahead.
No, interestingly, I'm a member at I play golf, not very well, but I play golf, and where I play golf, when I first joined, I remember there being cliques, and it was interesting because no harm, no foul, right? It wasn't intentional, but like everywhere else you go, people become friends, and they kind of, have that little group that if you warm up and make yourself available to them, right? Usually, most of the world, I like to think, has good people, and they kind of welcome you into the quote unquote clique. And Israel kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Clique doesn't necessarily need to be used in a negative term, right? It's more about, sort of the preface or before, when I think about opening this shop, right? There's shops and cigars have been been going around and being sold and enjoyed for many years. And so we talked about being a little different people, and we with your help, and we've been doing that. And Nick's a good example of that, right?
So
That phone's
busy,
right
the
behind
phone
you.
is ringing
It's
off
all
the
good,
hook.
man. It's all good. It's all good. So why didn't we win the lotto? Can we talk about that for 2 seconds? I put in the $5 for the pool. We won $10. So what's the split? What's
You
my
won
count
ten
on that?
dollars.
Yeah, we won $10, but I
So,
didn't see anything from the $10. Jerry
I
got all the tickets.
so we had 32 lounge members that chipped in $5 each. We won 10. The 2 lounge members that did not contribute and did not want to contribute, for their sake, maybe it's good that we didn't win. But we do have some money going into the next one as well. So
Dude, I
good
was
luck.
losing my mind because we got three of the numbers. Three of the numbers. I was like,
Really?
you've got to, yeah, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then
Wow.
you look up the three numbers and it's like $10. Congratulations, right? I'm just like, you've got to be
Wow.
kidding me. But for like that brief moment where you play, it's like, you're not going to win. Like the odds are like one in, what is it? A billion, 2 billion, something like that.
Millions. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But it's always that brief moment where you're just like, what would I do? What would I do with that 15? First and foremost, how the hell are you going to go from $1.2 billion or $1.4 billion down to $477 million? Then we would have had to split that 32 ways. And then you turn around and they're going to get taxed on that again. So I think we did the math and we would have saw, what is it, 15 million apiece?
15
Not a
million,
shabby day.
less some taxes. I would certainly take it, and certainly could find ways to use some of that for good and charities and all that stuff, which is real. I know you would be certainly open to doing as well. But we did say that we would open up, a cigar lounge, really not a business, but we sometimes call this one a second home. But I said we'd open up the craziest cigar lounge you could, and I don't even know what that entails yet, but it's like the logical thing. Maybe it would have so much money to be in my house, but that was something that we talked about. So, anyways,
It was funny. Hey, Nick, it
Yeah.
was funny because I was just thinking about it. Like, imagine what would have happened with this cigar lounge here. Oh, by the way, we're at Leaf Cigar Lounge, located 185 Madison in New Milford, New Jersey, about 15, 20 minutes away from Harlem, close to everywhere, Paramus, Hackensack. If you're ever around, please stop by. As long as you're a good person, I always preface that. And I was just like, what do you think would have happened with this shop alone if the news leaked out that members of Leaf Cigar Lounge, dude, it would have been 300 humidors filled, could have charged $6,000 for memberships. It would have been insane.
so I thought
Oh,
about
it
that,
would've
and I
been some
thought
good PR.
we would give the lounge to the 2 guys that did not chip in for the lotto. So
Oh, so I'd be 50% on the lounge. I'll out myself as well.
Well,
Hey.
Nick, I got to ask you since you're here, transitioning a little bit. I know you're going to Cuba. Talk to me about
I
that.
am.
Can we go? Can we get tickets? Is it members only? What's going on?
They're supposedly going to have about 1,000 tickets available, but it's going to be very limited. 1,000 is actually limited. It's not open to the general public, but I can get tickets. They are ridiculously overpriced. I'm speaking about the Habanos 55th anniversary week, because it goes Wednesday through Friday, and it's going to be held in Havana. The opening night event is on Wednesday, and the tickets for that are $650. And the tickets for the gala event, which is on Friday night, the 9th of September, are $1,100 for the
Wow.
dinner. Now, mind you, the last Habanos Festival in February of 2020, the gala was $700, and that was up from the previous year. So, keeping in mind and keeping with their raising the prices like crazy constantly, that hasn't been raised as much as the cigars, but it is up quite a bit. $1,100. People tell me, is it worth $1,100? I say, look, if you're going for the food, absolutely not. If you're going just for the cigars, are you going to get $1,100 worth of cigars in that gala event? No, they're going to give you a couple of the, the 55th anniversary that are very hard to get, but I doubt they're worth 1,100. But why I go and why a lot of people go is because of the camaraderie. And I haven't seen a lot of my friends from around the globe that are Habanos distributors, retailers, and people in the industry in the Habanos world all over the country. And I get to see these guys twice a year, usually during the Habanos Festival in February. And then sometimes they'll show up during the Partagas, Amigos de Partagas weekend of fun in November. And it's great because I get to smoke cigars with some like-minded people. And it's the best place to smoke a cigar, in my opinion. Cuba is like no other. And it's worth going there just at least once. You asked if you can go. With the new requirements and the new changes that President Biden has made since President Trump reversed a lot of the Obama changes, you are allowed to go in group travel under one of 9 categories. There used to be like 12 categories. I've cut back a few categories. So there are some legal categories that you're still able to go. Group travel, people to people, or educational, they're calling it now, you can go. There are flights. One of the other common ways that people go is if you have relatives in Cuba, they can go. There's flights out of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, several other places. And so, yeah, there's JetBlue flies there, American flies there. There's a few other airlines that fly there. So there's ways to go, and it is legal. But keep in mind, that's the thing. Like these cigars that I'm going to be handed, I wonder if I'm able to bring them in because you're not allowed to buy any Cuban cigars. But I'm going to be traveling under a journalist visa when I attend, because I'm going to be covering the show. So I don't know if I'll be able to even bring those back legally.
So what do you mean? What do you mean family? Like, what if they're like my third cousins? Can I go?
Well, listen, you can check the box, and if you ever get somebody on your door knocking from OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, or get a letter in the mail, you have to basically explain what your purpose was there. And even if you were under illegal travel there, you have to keep what is known as a full-time program while you're there, and keep a itinerary for 5 or 7 years in case you get a call from the State Department of the United States says, hey, tell us why you were there, during September of 2020. So people still go, and I'm not saying they're going to be knocking on everybody's door, but there is that chance, or there is that opportunity. So, got to keep that in mind.
Say no more. I got to get over to Cuba for a variety of reasons. I have to go. It's like the forbidden fruit of all things cigars, right? Well, at least to us, like the people. Jerry, have you ever been there?
I have never been to Cuba, no, God, nor have I been to the Dominican Republic. So
wait a minute, wait.
Or Nicaragua,
right.
or Honduras,
or Nicaragua. So I think I will get to those 2 places probably before Cuba.
You've never been to Dominican Republic?
Oh no, and at the right time, I have to, really kind of make sure my wife is comfortable. But no, I do plan on getting out to the DR hopefully in the next year.
I got you. Well, you're always invited. You can come along with me and all the other members in this shop that are Dominican that come in on Thursdays. I'm sure you'll be more than taken care of. That is insane. You gotta go. You gotta go to DR. Like, not so much for like the reasons why a lot of sleazeballs go.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna call them sleaze. Yeah, I call them what it is, sleazeballs. But you gotta go see Tamboril. You gotta go to the Fuente Lounge. it's just being out in the campo, which is like the equivalent of, I don't know, like being in I don't know, what is the campo equivalent of like New York? I don't know, like being upstate somewhere where it's just you and just acres of land everywhere and fresh mangoes and
It's the
nice
farm. It's like
people.
being on a farm.
Yeah, and just relax. Dude, it's funny because when I'm in America, I might smoke twice a week, 3 times a week. If I'm in DR, I'm going through 4 or 5 cigars a day. It's like insane. I don't know if it has to do with the relaxation part of it. Who knows?
That's
And I
the
don't
life
feel
for me.
smoked out either. It's weird. It's weird. Like if I'm here with Jerry or James or whatever, or if I meet up with Nick and I have 2 cigars, I'm tapped out. Like I'm done. You put me someplace peace and tranquil. Give me all the cigars. Give me all the single malt. Just give it to me, and then leave me the hell alone. And give me a fresh coconut, the green one, please. I don't know, but maybe that's just me.
It's
What about you,
it's
James? You
funny
travel?
though.
I the last place I went to prior to COVID and Quebec in Quebec City, Montreal. During COVID, just locked down here. I've been across to Europe, but never to, unfortunately. And that is one of my goals to get down there, Dominican Republic, and Nicaragua, where a lot of the great tobacco is grown, and one day Cuba, and
There's a
see
nice
what the
event,
good thing is.
James. There's a great event that they used to do. I think it was in January. It's called Puro Sabor, and it's held in Nicaragua. And it's a great little week of activities where not only are there nice dinners and there's people from. It's a consumer event, and you get to travel there and you get to visit a bunch of different factories. It's a fun event, fun week to be there in
Nick, where's your
Nicaragua.
farm? Where's your farm base, Nick?
My farm or my factory?
Your
I don't
factory.
know. We do factories in Costa Rica. It's in a little town called Puriscal. It's about 5 minutes to an hour away from San Jose, up through the mountains. Um, and I started prior to the COVID thing. I started doing factory tours. I did actually 3. I did one in January, February, and March, and literally left there the day before they locked it down. And that was the day we had the tickets. So thank God, prior
Mm.
to COVID, I just took a shot, and I had a group with me that March. They were from Texas, and we got back in the States. I think we were back on the 16th, and then the 17th they locked it down completely. So I plan on redoing those trips because I highly recommend anybody that's into cigar smoking to really go to one of their favorite factories, any factory for that matter, or Cuba. And you get to see and learn so much more. You appreciate more what you're smoking. When they say there's 300 hands that touch the cigar, the amount of labor, the amount of love and skill that goes into producing just one cigar, you will never bitch again about the price of a cigar, because if this was made 100% in the U.S. at normal rates and everything else, it would be very expensive. It would be basically the price of a Cohiba, a new price of a Cohiba. Yeah, these cigars for the average price between $10 and $15 that a cigar costs. There's a lot that goes into it. The amount of effort, the aging, the process in there. Once you go to a factory or to a farm, you really appreciate what goes into a cigar, and I highly recommend it to anybody that's into it. As even if you're not that into it,
Mhm.
it's worth trying, and everybody loves them.
Well, Nick, I'm gonna edit this. Full disclosure, I'm gonna make it real nice. But since we're live right now, I want to know: is it possible to set up a Costa Rica tour, putting you on the spot with Leafs? How much would something like that cost? How could we set that up and hopefully plan for, like, I don't know, maybe like February, March of next year? That'd be. I'm down. You down, Jerry?
I'm down, but don't. I need Nick to provide me his cigar, so I'm gonna not be so quick to put him on the spot. I'll let you handle that.
Well, listen,
Yeah.
you're absolutely. I can tell you this, that the tour that I was doing in 2020. I started doing these in 2020. It was basically 4 nights, 5 days. My trip included the housing, and again, it's not 5-star accommodation, but it's a comfortable
Airbnb.
place. Airbnb. Well, in Puriscal, before we had an Airbnb, but there's a place in Puriscal where the factory is, about a mile or two down the road. It's kind of like very rustic. I forgot what it's called, but they're like little cabins. But here's the beauty of Costa Rica. I don't care when you go. It could be 90 degrees during the day, that at night you need a blanket. And I'm not kidding, whether it's in the middle of the summer or in the winter. So there is no need for air conditioning. Now, the Airbnbs have air conditioning. We stayed in Airbnbs before, but I'm going to use this place because it's so close. Because the big frustration and the difficulty in providing tours, Nicaragua is great because you can smoke anywhere. Costa Rica, the good and bad of it, there's always good and bad Rica. The bad is they're very strict on cigar or any kind of smoking. So for me, it was difficult setting up restaurants and places to be able to smoke while you're in Costa Rica. But I found them. So it was kind of a quasi-outdoor setup. We had them. And what I did is all transportation, pick up. We went for all the meals were included and all the cigars. And believe it or not, the full price, and again, not designed for me to make money. It's basically for me. Cost was $6.99. $6.99 included housing, transportation, and cigars per person, and for 4 nights, 5 days.
So you can't tell me that. So wait a minute. So all I got to get is my flight. That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
So we get a flight from Newark.
I know. Let me just say this. This was This is what I used to charge. I don't think it's going to change much. I don't think so. It would be right around price. I haven't started up the tours again, but I'd have to look into it. But it would be there, and we had some nice activities to kind of round it out. I took everybody to a coffee plantation / factory, which was nice to do something different because Costa Rica is also very well known for their coffee. So we added that in. We took them to a beach town, which was about 2 hours away. So we went there and we stayed there one night, and it was nice to just do some activities near the beach, just to kind of break up. And what was cool, what I did over there is I conducted a blending seminar. So I got to blend their own cigar with the help of, we basically assigned 2 rollers to each participant. And we gave you a choice of different tobaccos. We made sure your cigar didn't taste terrible, even though it was the first time you're eating something. And then we had a little contest. And then everybody has a parting gift, a little box of their blend of 5 or 10 cigars. And on the box, it was engraved, the month, the year, and custom blended by in your name. So it was a nice little memento souvenir with your custom blend cigars that we made for everybody. So, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot about the process from soup to nuts. Our farm that we use is in Ecuador, where all our rubbers are grown, and we sell that. We lease that farm, but we buy tobacco from all the other top people, and so the factory is there. We do age our own cigars. So it's a fun event to come, and you learn a lot. I highly recommend it to anybody. I'll be happy to do that with you guys.
In full disclosure, I'm on my phone right now, and it's saying that the prices are currently high, but to go from New York or Newark to Costa Rica from March 9th to the 13th, just putting it in the atmosphere, you never know, right?
Right.
With the prices currently being high, the flight is $354 round trip. That's an 8-hour.
What?
That's an 8-hour trip. Oh no, that's one stop. Wait a minute.
Cheap. That's cheap as that. No. That's cheap as hell.
So we might be able to get this whole thing set up for about $1,200.
Here's what it was. Like I've actually flown to Costa Rica just after we were able to go, pandemic wise, and I swear I did a round trip flight from Newark for $300, which is very rare and unusual. I normally, in pre-pandemic prices, about $500 to $600. So I'm guessing it should get down with enough notice. You're airfare should not be more than $700 at the most, depending on what's going on today. So yes, $700 for airfare, another $700. You're all in for 5 days, and it's an experience that you'll never forget.
Jerry, I'm so down for something
I
like
am
that.
in.
But you know what's crazy? Let's not just talk about it. Let's do it. Let's lock this in, right?
Okay.
Let's set
Yep.
a pre-price of like 1800 bucks. We'll go up to 2,000 from there. If people book in January, February, it'll be more. It is what it is. Dude, these guys did something in DR earlier this year in Tamboril. They had like I think it was, I don't know if it was the first ever Tamboril festival with Fuente, something like that. Dude,
Right.
the tickets to the event alone was like $2,000 or $1,500, right? Am I losing it?
That I don't know.
I think so. I think it was like fifteen hundred
I
dollars for
know
the.
the Dominican Pro Cigar. That's pretty pricey.
That's what it
The
was. How
Puro
much? Yeah, that's
Savor,
what it was.
Puro Savor is actually, I think that's around 2002 for a week. Um, yeah, they're but it is a money maker. I should charge at least that, because I remember, I can guarantee you that everybody that went on my tour, I had all the participants because I knew them, because I never advertised it, and these were generally people that had been on my Cuba tours and said, "Nick, we want to go somewhere else with you. You're such a great host." Blah blah blah. So I said,
Right.
"Well, come to the factory," and everybody was in on it. They all came to me one by one. They go, "Nick, are you covering your costs on this? I can't believe you get all this for this price." And I go, "Look, I never intended the Costa Rica trip to be a moneymaker. I just want to try to cover my costs." And probably not, but it didn't cost me a lot. You know what I mean? We kind of roughed it in a lot of ways. I mean, we ended up buying the vans because I really was planning on making it a regular thing. To be
Right.
perfectly honest, some factories don't charge at all for this, but they have a lot more financial means to be able to do that. They don't charge anything. You get down there and they give it to you for free. So in my case, they don't give you the food and everything, but you're getting the food, the housing, and the transportation for free. Not
So
to
let's slow
mention
this down for a
cigars.
second, Nick. Hold on, Nick. So you're getting food, a coffee plantation exploration, travel, and you get to roll your own
Transportation,
cigars and
right?
transportation, and we could set this whole thing up with flight for about $1,500.
Yep,
There's no way we can't. There's no
absolutely.
way. There's
Well, obviously the moving targets the flight, but it still sounds like a really cool opportunity, and financially it sounds like it's pretty fair. So,
Dude, I go to Jamaica, Montego Bay, or when I go to DR, if I stay in one of these resorts, I'm spending for me, the family. That whole trip is costing me like $6 grand. $6 grand
Well,
to be
I
on a
can tell
resort
you,
somewhere.
in cigars alone, you're going to be at that price. And the amount of cigars, you literally smoke a different LH or Nick cigar morning. I mean, basically as much as you want. We provide cigars in the morning, lunch, dinner, and any time during the trip. You need a cigar, you hit me up, and I hand you cigars. So, and you leave there with some cigars. So, in cigars alone, you're going to get your value. So, it's
And that
definitely well worth it.
doesn't include sponsors. That doesn't include yeah, it doesn't include any of the
Yeah.
extra sprinkles that you put on
I
to
don't.
help offset the cost.
The only offset costs are basically on me and factory. I
I'm
don't have
down. All
sponsors
right.
yet.
All right. I'm not going to speak on it too much because I'll talk about this for the next 3 hours and I don't want to do that. But let's definitely talk about that in the next up and coming days and weeks and figure that
Yeah,
out.
I'd be happy to start doing that again. Yeah.
Got you. So shifting, what you said you have a new cigar coming out, a new blend. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's been in the pike now for a while. I had a little bit of a hiccup. Now, normally, because I'm somewhat vertically integrated, we don't have our own farms, but we have our own box factory. And having your own factory helps having good access. I don't have to be in a queue for anything. But what happened was getting the tobacco. I was using a specific tobacco from the Dominican. I had the tobacco purchased, but it was getting it from the container, from the ship. It took so long, I had to revamp the whole blend. But I have a new cigar that will be coming out within the next, let's just say by the end of the year for sure. I'm saying in the next 2 months or so, it's going to be called the Nikos, kind of a play on Nick. Nikos is anybody that's Greek is named Nick. They call him Nico. So the Nikos, a lot of people tell me, Nick, we love your cigars. I just wish they were a little stronger. And not that I'm against stronger cigars, but I believe in well fermented, smooth cigars, not nicotine bombs. That's not what the LH or the Nick is about. Because we ferment these things so well that I love flavor, but I don't like the harshness, and I don't like what you get if you're used to smoking a strong cigar in the back of the throat the next morning, in some cases, someday the same day. You'll never get that. So even in my Nikos, it'll be the strongest offering that I've come out with to date in an LH or a Nick. But the people that have tried the original blend that I made, that I had a sneak peek of it, loved it. They can't wait for it. I had it certain retailers grabbed it, and that was back in May. So it's been delayed, but it's coming out, and look forward to it. And I think it'll do really well in the market.
Nick, can you tell us a little bit about I blend or from the original blend onto the Nick line, etc. It's like what the process look like? Who else are you talking to? And how does that evolution come out to it's in the shop?
Well, I've gotten pretty good at blending with there's about 80 different countries that produce tobaccos. And a lot of people, Nick's the master blender. Look, I'm the master blender of my own brand, and I've gotten pretty good at using tobaccos that I use. What I've learned, and every tobacco that I use in my blends kind of happened organically, where either I was directly involved in the procuring of the actual tobacco, whether I met the person individually or I've been to the farm. The types of tobaccos that I like to use is specifically, I use a lot of Peruvian filler. I use a lot of Nicaraguan. The Nicaraguan stuff that I use is minimum 5-year age. I generally buy from a company called ASP. They're very good. The Peruvian comes from a Italian fellow that owns this land in Peru. Gennaro is his name. And I use Dominican. I use Brazilian. I use Brazilian Matafina. I use all our wrappers, and for binder, I use Ecuadorian. We have a farm in Ecuador I mentioned earlier that all the wrappers that I use in all my cigars are some seeded Ecuadorian. I use the Connecticut seed, the Habano 2000. I use the Vuelta Bajo seed. I use the Criollo, the Corojo. I use a lot of different seeds in Ecuador. And Ecuador, just to me, is the best country, even more than Cuba. And I love Cuban cigars, but the one thing I believe that Cuban cigars are lacking is flavorful wrappers. They're beautiful looking, very sheen, but they really don't offer much. And here's a good test for people to try. If you're a Cuban cigar smoker, if you peel off the wrapper on your Cuban cigar, the flavor will hardly change. And it's hard to believe because on every non-Cuban cigar, you take off that wrapper, totally changes the cigar.
Changer. Yeah.
So the wrapper, so I love the wrappers, and the fact that we lease this farm in Ecuador gives us that opportunity to have some of the best wrappers, and we sell that wrapper, to a lot of other manufacturers out there. So those are the tobaccos that I use so far. Now, have I used other stuff? Sure, I'm always introducing different things, but like for instance, when I made the Nick and Jim cigar, I was trying to use Honduran tobacco to try to use the combination of Jim's cigars all come from Honduras. Oscar Valadares factory is not only big Honduras, but they use a lot of Honduran tobacco. So I was trying to use some of the tobacco that he uses, and I found it to be a little gritty and didn't really play well with the other tobaccos that I use. So I went back to my basics. And there's so many different variations you can make on just the 5 or 6 tobaccos that I use, but I'm always introducing new stuff. And I like what I produce personally. The people that have smoked it seem to like it, so I'm happy for that. And again, well fermented, quality, smooth blends. Hope that answers your
Nick,
question, Jim.
I just want to an absolute question, if Israel will indulge me here. And for sports team from a young age? Is because maybe your parents liked it or have you? I'm not going to get into sports here too much, but I chose a soccer team later. So,
Inside voice.
yeah, so I apologize for that. You eventually how did you a
James. Start over, brother. Start over, please.
to
Start over.
Oh yeah, I lost
yeah
it.
sorry yes got into cigar. How did you a get into cigar smoking, and b when you decided, okay, I'm gonna go on my own and start my own line from there? Just for the audience, and how long you've been kind of in the
Yeah,
industry.
yeah, it's an interesting question. Um, I started smoking cigars in 1992. I mean, regularly. I dabbled with them before. I never really cared for them. It wasn't. I called 1992 the year that I had my aha moment, where I had the first cigar, when I finally said, you know what, I get this. I understand why people smoke cigars. And then I dove in deep. I had cigar lounges that I was a partner in the La Vida Havana lounges in the Middle East. And it was my job to procure the actual cigars, and most of them were Cuban. Like 99% of what we sold were Cuban cigars in the Middle East. And then I started making blends in Cuba for the private clientele. The big decision for me at that point is I got so involved and I started learning so much dealing with a lot of these master blenders in Cuba. The decision I made, which may or may not have been the right decision, but it was the right decision for me. Maybe not business wise or financial. Like I got to know Abel Fernandez, AJ, back in 2008, 2009, and nobody knew who he was. He wasn't AJ back then. And a lot of these guys that were great blenders, and a lot of people said, hey, why don't you make a cigar with AJ before AJ had made cigars for anybody else other than for CI? But I decided early on that, you know what, I wanted to put my particular DNA and my touches to that cigar. And initially, and to this day, I get a lot of um, mentoring and advice. I run all my blends through some of my mentors in Cuba, and I always have them try it before I even finalize anything or even get close to finalizing. So in the early days, I kept, like my first cigar that I blended, it took me about 11 months to do it. I've gotten a lot faster on it, but it was a learning process, and having some of these mentors behind it. And the reality is, people go, "Who the hell is Nick?" and who the hell is and who's he to make a cigar or think he can blend a cigar? But I had encouragement early on from some very very iconic names in the industry, as well as my partner in the factory. He said, "Nick, you should try to make a non-Cuban blend." And I'm like, you know what? Who am I to think that I can make a non-Cuban blend when I had some of the best cigars being sold in Saudi and they were not selling well? We're talking about the Fuente. I was the first guy to bring Fuente into the Middle East, the first guy to bring Padron into the Middle East, and they were not selling as well because back then nobody was even trying non-Cuban cigars. So I'm like, I can't sell those icons and masters. Who am I to think I can sell my own? And my partner said to me, Nick, don't sell yourself short. Your talent is knowing what your clients like, what they prefer, and what their palates are like. So you could take that and go to bat with it. And I did. And I've gotten pretty good. Again, I said all the LH blends were blended for the outside of the U.S., for somebody with a Cuban palate in mind. And then the Nick line was developed here for the U.S. market, and they're very distinctively different, but both equally good, I believe, blends and brands. So yeah, it was a big decision for me to put it under my name as the blender versus. I know I would get a lot more sales if I collaborated and had Ernesto, or Ernie Perez Carrillo, or any of these people like Karen Berger. She just did a cigar. I hope she succeeded well with. She did a cigar with AJ. A lot of people have done cigars with AJ. Right now, any cigar that AJ seems to put his name on seems to sell very well, and rightfully so. He's a great blender. I don't take anything away from the man. But I wanted to put my fingerprint on it, my DNA, and it's something that I'm very personal about, which is another reason why I don't. People go, "Why don't you promote your cigar more?" And when I develop the blend, it's a very personal thing for me, and I'm not the guy that's going to go, "Hey, smoke my cigars; you're the best in the world." I believe that, but I want you, the consumer, the retailer, to be the judge of that. Do you like it? And again, it's something I don't believe you should smoke one cigar, but I'd love to be in somebody's rotation. And I think it has enough merit for people to be able to smoke an LH or a Nick from time to time and enjoy it. The one thing I can guarantee, because of where my factory is in Costa Rica, that whether or not my blends are in your, flavor wheel or your palate, I will guarantee that it's going to be an enjoyable smoking experience where you're going to enjoy because it's going to be well constructed, it's going to draw right, and that's half the battle is having a good cigar experience. So I always tell my retailers, rest assured, you can recommend this to your customers, and it's something that needs to be recommended because it doesn't have the press or the marketing behind it, but it's something that I believe if somebody tries it, word of mouth, and that's what's been happening. And I'm happy to report that people try it, they go back to it. So I've been quite happy with the success of it.
I got to shift real quick because I got to dissect some things that you said, which is why I
Mhm.
updated this to like business in the industry, right? So one of the things that's interesting that you said is you were the first person to bring Fuente into Saudi Arabia.
That's correct.
Did you get paid for that? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah. Well, what happened was I approached Carlito back in 2008, and I said, Carlito, I have these lounges in the Middle East. He originally sent me to the guy that does Prometheus. What was his name? Keith Parks. And Keith, businessman that he is, he wanted me to buy a gazillion humidors and this and that, and then he was going to sell me his version that he had, which was the God of Fire. That didn't work out. So I went back to Carlito. I said, that's not going to work for me, Carlito. And I had a relationship with Carlito. I knew him for many years, since the 90s. And he took me over to the distributor, worldwide distributor, the Jeremy and Joshua. I don't know how to pronounce their name, Marikoffel, whatever. They're nice guys, but they cut me out pretty quick out of the equation. We purchased like two large quantities of cigars. We sold through it quickly, and that's when those guys said, "Whoa, who is this guy Nick, and why? How's he selling cigars when we weren't able to sell them in the Middle East?" And then they, of course, went to somebody else, and then started to import their own, which is fine because I wasn't set up, and never did I claim to be. We were the only alternative at the time for smoking cigars. So was I paid? Yes. We bought it at distributor pricing, and then I stopped, and that was fine because that's when I started blending my own cigar. And predominantly what we sell in the lounges at the time was Cuban and the LH, custom blends.
See, the reason
Now the
why I asked
Padrones,
that.
I will say
Go
this.
ahead. Go ahead,
Yeah, go ahead.
please.
No, the Padrones were very, very respectable. I dealt with Caesar, and once we started selling it, people all of a sudden go, "Oh, it's selling!" And there was a gentleman that approached the Padrones and said, "We want to be your distributor in the Middle East." They were out of Dubai, and Caesar came to me and said, "Nick, these guys want it. How do you feel about it?" And I said, Caesar, thank you for giving me that opportunity to even have a right of refusal, but they will do a much better job at distributing your cigar in the Middle East than I will, because predominantly we're lounges. And that's great that you have somebody that was willing. And I really respect the Padron family and for Caesar for giving me the opportunity to say, okay, thank you. At least you're telling me. So yeah, we brought in Padron first and Fuente into Saudi Arabia.
The reason why I asked that, and thank you so much for sharing, bro. But I can't, from the outside looking in, right? Jerry and I are getting way more involved in this industry, right, Jerry? And what we're finding, well, what I'm finding, I'll speak for myself. Going back to these cigar clicks. So when I look at it, I'm like, okay, this brother here introduced a new country to Fuente cigars, made a couple coins on it, probably should have made more, but now it's there. You could kick to the wayside, even if people are trying to do business correctly. But then there's a situation of, okay, you launch your own cigar, you make a hell of a blend, and then it's like, okay, where's the support on that, right? Not saying you're not doing well, but like, where's the support on it? You understand what I'm saying? And then all these events, these PCAs, even here, like, I'll make it more personal. Like, you open up a shop, and these clicks, they go to certain different spots, wherever, what they might have their favorite DJ, or maybe they want to support the owner, or whatever the case may be. But as soon as you get that ping on the radar of being like a well-ran shop, a shop that's doing jazz events, a shop that has domino nights, things of that nature, now all of a sudden everybody wants to ping on you, right? So it's like, I'm really interested, going back to this Costa Rica trip. Like, if you do something like that, if we do something like that together, I think it changes the dynamic of how people deal with us in this industry, right? And it's like, I wish it wasn't like that, but it seems to be the same across every industry. And I'm trying to figure out why the cigar industry is so, I want to choose the right word.
Cliquish.
Yeah. Like, it's
But
weird. Like I
can
should
I
I should
can
be
I pull
saying, I
back
should.
the curtain for a second,
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Israel? I'm going to say something that somewhat not. I don't think it's controversial because it's the absolute truth. I don't care who out there, and this is the way it is with 90% of the lounges and shops across the country. What the bigger shops and the bigger lounges do is they have their core 4 or 5 big brands, and they continue to sell that because they want the cigar to sell itself. As a business owner, they don't want to work at selling a cigar. They want people to come in and say, hey, hand me that Romeo and Juliet, hand me that Macanudo, because that's where all the marketing is, and that's the Me Too that people, the 90% of the smokers out there that are smoking, they go for those brands. So what they want is the shops that are willing to, because there's so much buzz with boutique brands, and there's, like, just this year alone at the PCA, there was probably at least 30 new brands that came out. So what happens? They train their customers. Okay, you want a boutique? We'll bring in a cigar. And this is not just me. This is the majority of brands that are out there. What happens is they'll bring in a brand. They'll buy it once. They'll get their customers to try it once. And then immediately the shop starts moving people away or training their customers to go back to their legacy brands. And why is that? Because these bigger brands, because of the sheer volume and money backing that they have, they offer a lot of deals. And that's the thing, buy X amount free. We give you a kickback. We give you marketing dollars. We give you this. They're buying their shelf space, and then they understandably says, well, shit, I make a lot more money on these cigars, so these are the ones I want to make. And I've had people that they just don't get it in the U.S. market. It doesn't happen outside of the U.S. market, where people come to me and say, oh, you really want to sell, you have to give me better deal. You have to give me better pricing. And I go, look, at the prices that I'm at, this is it. I don't do the deals. And the reason is because I don't have the margin in it to do it, mainly because I'm in Costa Rica and the costs involved with not only the labor costs there, but the import and export costs. But other brands that are in Nicaragua, they're buying the smaller brands. They're buying from the bigger factories, and they're charging more, of course. So they have to put that into their cigar. So yeah, the boutiques that are out there where the passion is there, but their costs are a bit higher, or they can't give the same deals, or it just doesn't make sense for them to do it. So, what happens if I buy 100 boxes? I don't care if you buy 100 or you buy 10. And people say, you wouldn't do it. I think, Israel, you're the one who said that to me. And I go, yeah. For me, I want people to buy my cigar because it's something that the customers are asking for, not because it's a deal, not because that's what the retailer. I want the retailer to make money, but I think it's more important. And there's just a lot of retailers that have this mentality. I like the retailer. The customer comes in and they go, hey, Mr. Customer, I know you've been smoking that ABC brand. That's a great brand. I like that you like it, but can I offer you something that you might like as well or better? You never know. I always say, your next cigar, maybe your favorite cigars, some you haven't even tried yet. So you should always explore your palates and always try different things, because you never know. You may hit on a cigar and go, wow, this is like my new favorite cigar. But if you're only smoking one brand all the time, you're never going to reach that. So the retailers out there that are doing that, I call them real tobacconists that are saying, hey, this is something up your alley. You should try this cigar. Those I want to be a part of, because the reality is if you're in a big, huge humidor and you're just on the shelf, somebody may never find it. I did my own, impromptu type of surveys in humidors when I worked events. And I'll go, I noticed, Mr. Customer, that you kind of glazed over the LH, but you seem to stop at my nick, which has a very simple white paper band. Why is that? And they'll go, well, the LH looks nice and all, but it looks like just every other brand that I've never heard of. Where the nick with the white band, and as inexpensive as that band is to produce, and might I say cheap looking, it grabs more attention, which is just blows me away. And initially when I did the nick band, there was a whole reason for it. It wasn't like I was trying to be this marketing guru about it. I couldn't get bands during the pandemic. So I used the same concept of the Nick and Jim, which is a pre-band edition, which was designed to show a white paper band that normally would mark what the blend was. And I left it on there, and it's been, I have to say that I've had several imitators already. And, the imitation is the greatest form of flattery, that other people are doing something that I did, and I'm a nobody in the industry, at least in the U.S. side of things. And people have already spotted it, and they like it. The LH band is a very, very true band, and looks very, I don't want to say I think it's as good as any out there. But again, people never heard brand. They go, I don't know this. But this band with this white, that looks kind of interesting. Let me try that. Amazing how that is. So me as the anti-marketer did something kind of on the marketing end, and it seemed to work.
Yeah, but then you
So I
turn
hope I
around and you
answered
got
the
a bunch
question.
of people. Yeah, but then you turn around and you got a bunch of people copying your idea because they see that it's becoming profitable, right? That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. It's like, dude, if you don't want to come
that's
to
the nature
Leafs, you
of the
don't have to
beast.
come to. I get it, but there has to be a way to pay someone their flowers, right? From a financial standpoint and also from a marketing standpoint, that you know who the trendsetters are. Like I give you another example real quick, and then we'll wrap this up with some quick questions, some flash questions I want to ask you. But like perfect example, somebody comes into the shop, Jerry. They want a Padron or they're asking for certain cigars, right? How do you then even like wean them on to another cigar? And then part two of it is that what is the benefit for you personally as a shop owner selling that Padron versus selling the Nick? Let's dive into that.
Yeah, so just one thing I think that we kind of pride ourselves on here, and Jesse, who runs the shop, is working right now, but we really kind of focus on learning our
Right over there.
customers, right? Oh yeah, you're with us. That's right. But learning
right here.
customers, what our customers are like,
Hey, Jess.
and just using that example as a specific one, right? I never try to tell someone don't smoke something they ask for. So one, on the occasion where I'm fortunate enough to have enough Padrones in stock,
Okay, there you go.
right? We'll let them.
That's Jesse, by the way.
Jesse.
Come see Jesse.
And by the way, he knows every cigar known to mankind, and sometimes I wonder if he's making it up, but he does. But using that as an example, I'd give him the Padron and say, hey, you want to try something new? And Jesse's really good at this. He kind of talks to the cigar from his perspective, and we do too. But it's still up to the individual and their taste. But I think we do a good job at trying to get people to try things. And yeah, is it true that maybe a cigar that's in a certain price range maybe has a little bit more of a, I'll call it, profit? But I think to me, it's not about selling a cigar. It's about having a retail operation where people can come in and they know they can get what they're looking for, but from a flavor and a taste perspective that meets their needs. And I'll be honest with you, I think about when we first started carrying the LH line and the Nick line. Israel and I, we've talked about this, that we were sort of onto something with someone like Nick, who I kind of feel like, as a newer shop, it, getting back to those clicks, we're still working to build relationships with some of those larger known brands that people do love. But I think that Nick and his brand is going to be where maybe a shop, that opens 10 years from now is looking back, and Nick is trying to make sure that he has enough supply to not only deal with, the customer that's been a customer of his for 10 years, but the new shop, right? And that's a struggle that we certainly have every day, but it's just a supply and demand issue. It's not, cigar companies being difficult or whatnot. It's truly a business and an industry that has grown, which means more demand for cigars across the board. But I think, like I said, I think on the last podcast that we had, I mentioned a lot about the single blender and their brand a chance, and we tasted it, and we let our customers decide. And fortunately, Nick and his brand is one that has now stuck, and people can come in and, Nick, you talk about your LH label or band, but now it's easy. People just come in and say, where are the LHs again? Right. And it's not so much. So I think having the right approach with your customer base is something that, you get it in their hands, and then the cigar begins to speak for itself. And then that cigar has become a lot of our customers now.
If I can say something as well.
Go ahead.
One of the reasons why, obviously, it's pretty close. I live about an hour from here, so it's quite proximity-wise close. But there's a lot of other shops. The reason why I like coming to this shop in particular is because not only do you feel at home, but all right. There's no pretentiousness. There's no, everybody is treated equal. And I love the way that, Jesse and everybody else gives everybody a fan. Any brand would love to be, I would recommend any brand to come over and try to be in this humidor, because at some point it's going to get crowded. But I think he'll give every brand a chance, and like Jerry said, let the people decide. If it's going to work, he'll tell you, you know what, it's not selling. And but at least you'll get an honest chance. What I get frustrated with, some shops will bring it in with the strict, in their mind, it's a one-shot deal. It's a one-shot deal. They want something new for their customers, and they have no intent whether they like it or not. And it's happened to me, and it's happened to a lot of other brands, where they'll be out of it within 2 or 3 weeks. And I'll happen to stop back, and I go, out of like this and this and this. He goes, yeah, we'll reorder. And then they'll tell my broker, yeah, we're on to the next one. And that's what
Nick,
happens.
I gotta cut you, Nick. I'm so sorry to cut you, but I have to cut you because the reason for that, and I'm 1,000% certain in this, is the reason for that is that there's not a big marketing push to the general consumer behind the individual brand. It's an amazing cigar. I've stated this before, and no one's paid me to say this, and no one can ever pay me to say anything that I don't like. The Nick cigar is by far the best cigar that I've had in the last 4 to 5 years. That's just my personal preference. Then I went to a bunch of people that were here at the shop, and I was just like, dude, you got to try this. And now we can't keep it in the shop. Like, I'm not lying. Like, you can't keep the damn cigar in the shop, right? So it's like, okay, why would the cigar shop owner, and I really have to kill this in the next 60 seconds, but why would the cigar shop owner then turn around and say, you know what, I want to move on to the next brand? No, if it was in the magazines, if there was influencers smoking it, if the Costa Rica trip was set up, if everything was moving accordingly to be able to boost the brand awareness, I guarantee you that these people would be pushing to order more of the brand. I guarantee it. There has to be something, like it's the same in the liquor industry, it's the same in the club industry, it's the same in the hotel industry. I'm sure there's better hotels to stay at than the Gansevoort. But if I'm looking in the city and I type in hotel to stay in New York City, guess what's pinging number one on using the SEO search on Google? It's the Gansevoort, it's the Marriott and things of that nature. So let's definitely finish up this conversation. we got to cut because we're only going to go an hour today, but we'll definitely reconvene at a later time. But Nick, I appreciate you. I appreciate you fellas for joining us on
Thank
this
you for having me.
episode, and we'll talk very soon, fellas. Peace and love.
Excellent.